Oh, hey Andy, how are you today?
Yeah, really good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Now, the question I always ask everybody is how do you like your coffee in the morning?
Black. Yeah, two scoops
Oh,
black. If I can get the French press out if I have time, normally go for that.
it's any any type of coffee bean that you go for, or is just we're just going to go for anything that is just caffeinated and coffee.
Yeah, I mean anything that's caffeinated, but I do like a Colombian bean.
Beautiful. Now, what is it that you do and why do you do it?
Yeah, so I'm what you call a protection advisor. So that doesn't mean advising people on security or the right contraception for their needs. It means about protecting themselves financially if anything bad happens. So good analogy is, I help families heavily with their correct life insurances for their needs, critical illness, protecting people's income, which I'm a massive advocate for because it's the highest likelihood of you making a claim. And then what I also do as well is I work with business owners and make sure if they're a director of their business, if they've got employees, that we are making sure that everyone there is looked after as well.
And especially on you, because you could really hear the passion when you were talking about protecting the income for families, and a lot of business owners are have a family like yourself.
Mhm.
Why is that such a passion for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been doing this now for 3.5 years, and I've seen firsthand with claims already, even though I've been doing it in a short space of time, as you can imagine. But I've seen how the destruction can affect families, and especially with hearing stories about people who didn't have cover in place, who maybe are putting themselves out on the line if they've got a high occupation class. Or if they play sport and they're putting themselves out in the open to be prone to injuries, very serious injuries. I've seen it, how it can destruct a family, and no one wants to suffer financially. But in the UK, it's, you're looking at 19 days before you really are going to be struggling financially without any income into the household.
And that 19 days, that's not even making a month. And if most of us get paid month by month and bills
Yeah.
come in every single month, that's a headache that will come very, very quickly. Do you have a story of a time where that person thought, oh, that would never happen to me. That will never, like, not something that's applicable to me, but turns out they worked with you and it ultimately saved them in the end. A story that you can share.
Yeah, I mean, great one recently was this year, earlier on this year with a claim. We had discussions, and it took me a while to finally get him on board as a client. But I kind of educated him around the scenarios and stuff like that. And his first initial reaction was it would never happen to me. Um, Track back and go even further along the line, and then he has separated his shoulder playing sport, where he's also needing surgery. And his was quite a hands-on business. He'd like to detail cars, and his income was literally gone straight away. Unless the fact that I put the insurance in place for him, we got them that payout. It allowed him that 6 month period to have the surgery, get back to full health, and whilst he was on that period, he actually looked into a career change and something a bit more focused around IT as opposed to a hands-on job. So he wouldn't have been able to do that, and he would have been struggling to pay his bills if it wasn't for the insurance that we put in place for him.
Wow, so that really was life changing. you know, he's gone from a very hands on job to a desk job. It's amazing. I always think what happens in the universe where you think you're going down one road and it just almost alters you to a completely different path.
Exactly, and his example, he never had any children. He didn't have a partner. So imagine how much that could have multiplied if it was like that. And now he's got qualifications behind him. He's gone back into detailing. He's looking at driving two businesses forward. So it just shows you how important these policies can be.
That's incredible. And so, as a business owner, and like you said, it's important to be protecting for the future because as business, we're always constantly thinking, how do I get more leads? How do I get more business? How can I make my operations better? How, you're so in the thick of it business wise, it's almost this little afterthought to, oh, I've got to protect myself, and I like that you've also included protect the employee, because that's something I'm certainly a big believer of, protecting my team.
Yeah.
What would be the top 3 things that you think is super prevalent to a business owner when it comes to that, when it comes to protecting for the future?
I mean, if you speak to any business coach, they'll always say to you, you need to step outside the business and look at it from an eagle eye view. And when we are getting caught up in the day-to-day slog of trying to bring on new leads, bring on new clients to pay those bills, we really just do need to take a step back and get someone like myself on side where I can just speak to you for an hour, and then the second meeting another hour, and that's it. We're all done and dusted because I've made the recommendation. We've got the policies in place. And then you don't have to worry about it. You've got peace of mind that I'm going to get in touch with you every 12 months and say it's time to review. So in terms of a director, I mean, what the main priorities would be, if you are a limited company and you've got children, if you've got liabilities outside, like a spouse or partner, then you really should be looking at running the life insurance through the business. And the reason why that is because it's tax efficient. So you could be paying for a personal policy, which is taxed, NI'd, and then you're paying for your premium on a net basis, which is not the best way of doing it. Protecting your income, like I said, if you can pay for it through your business, that's tax efficient as well. It saves on corporation tax. And then other areas, it totally depends on what the business is about and what the risks are. If you've got employees, what are you offering them to keep them around in terms of retaining the top talent, like you said, looking after your employees. So you're getting the best people surrounded by you because you're incentivizing their contracts of employment, really.
And can you go into more detail of that? I know
Yeah,
with
incentivizing
my,
an employee's contract would be something like private medical insurance. I mean, here in the UK, we all know how bad the NHS is at the moment, and if you can offer uh, an employee and their family private medical insurance so they can all utilise it, fantastic benefits put in place for them. Life insurance, which is also known as death in service, so if you went and worked for the council or the NHS, you'd get that in your contract after a probation period. So you can actually do this through your own business as a limited company and a director. You can give your staff death in service. Then protecting the business, I'd probably say, is quite important as well. So you might want to give them 3 months, 6 months full sick pay, depending on how big the business is. But when that happens, that's taken out of your business profits because that employee would be contributing to those profits. So having something in place there to protect that area is massively key as well.
and because I absolutely agree. There's definitely everybody. I think every company has got a story about, let's say, a story about there was a time when,
Yeah,
you only have to insert X and Y here. Um, Personally, I have a whole ton of sort of autoimmune issues. It's actually one of the reasons, ironically, why I've always been self-employed, because I've always had then almost this control about my work day and work life. But on the flip side, talking to yourself, I'm most vulnerable to getting sick, getting ill, like I have this year. And all that does is eats into the profit any
yeah,
time of day that you get away. And so, um, really what I'm sort of always want to sort of get across is we always hope to think that this never is ever gonna happen. But there's a really, really good book by Ryan Holiday. Um, Now you have to forgive me because I can't remember the title because it's Latin, but it's his very first book, so it's very easy to find. And it is essentially, if you've got the principle that that death is the only thing that is inevitable, it's the only thing that we know it's going to happen. Well, at least we can put as many things in place to like live our lives and do them and have the most risks, because that's what I always see actually, with your service is I want to be pushing my boundaries as much as possible. I want to be making as many risks as possible. But to do the best risks, you do have to mitigate as much as possible. So for example, now I've been traveling around around the world now for the last 12 months, obviously with different pit stops, but I've always consciously put as many things in place. So if something XYZ did go wrong, I'm defaulting to a lower rung down the ladder than
Mm.
what could actually possibly happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, well, a really nice, easy example was I had internet troubles a few weeks ago, um, which obviously has a really big impact on me because I'm a digital marketing agency and do everything digitally, and this is digital. But I kind of knew that for £100 that I could get a second phone that has a variety of different options on internet. Now that's a nice, easy solution to fix and mitigate. Whereas, say if I got hospitalised or was very, very sick and I get stranded out in America, or we could list on, that's a far bigger problem that is easily avoided by just having a simple conversation with somebody like yourself.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that about internet because we like to use this, or I like to use this one called Wi-Fi. We can't live without Wi-Fi. What else can't we live with? We can't live without work. We can't live without income. Family equals income. So it's a great way of thinking about it in that perspective and making it a bit more digestible for people. Because I know if my internet went off, wouldn't get any work done. I'd have to go to a coffee shop, etc., or work remotely somewhere else. So, it's just painting that picture of your family. You need income. You know,
Mhm.
what makes income work? So
But
there you go.
speaking of family, what since becoming a dad, what has changed your perspective when you're looking at business and even we've got connected through sport, yourself again through ice hockey, my through CrossFit, and it is a big part of our lives, outside of the work. How has becoming a dad really changed your perspective on looking at this subject?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it easier to talk to clients who are families who do have children, and when they come back with not excuse, but maybe they send it back to you and say, like you said earlier on the call, it's not going to happen to me. It's like, well, hold on a second. If it does happen to you, it's going to affect your children there. So I'm just educating them around the different add-ons, the different benefits. I've really made it having a child, I know the ins and outs of all the additional benefits that I can get from my family. So then that's where I portray it and talk to other people. So I make sure they're just as covered as me.
What would be an example? So, for instance, I don't have children. I only have to look out for numero uno, at the moment, and I know, having spoken to a lot of my close friends who've got children, how now this is their words, not mine. Obviously, it's almost their capacity to love, the capacity to be protective, the capacity just to almost defend the house just exponentially
Yeah, yeah.
grows. So how does that change your business decisions?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of kind of, becoming a parent and then being protective, that's just natural. But in terms of additional benefits that are out there and for people to use is things like remote GP services. And so many people have got insurance in place and they've put it away in their drawer, but they don't know what they've got at their fingertips. And when you can't get through to your own GP, but you can bring your insurance provider and speak to someone virtually the same day and get a prescription, for me, it's a no-brainer, and that's why, life insurances often go to the bottom of the pile, and that's what we try and get across. So they have them at the fingertips, and they can use these benefits.
It's so funny that you said that you put it all to the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
That is exactly where it's on a piece of paper. You think it's done, but actually, there's loads of little things throughout the day that they could be thinking about. Now, I know you started the business. We started when it was fairly early on, and you've just been growing and growing and growing in that time. But what is then the vision for you and your business going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I actually want to solely focus on dealing with business owners and protecting their business and those employee benefits. I just think there's something about walking into a boardroom where you've got four shareholders and you've got to be on your A game to win all four of them over in the room, but showing your knowledge, showing your skills, and where their risks are within the business. So that's my shift for the next kind of 5 years. I'm not saying I'm getting away from the families. It's just that is my main focus right now. And then, it's crazy. It's is insurance? Do I want to be doing? Once you enter financial services, you can go into different avenues, into different sectors of it. So I'm just looking forward to building and growing within Game Plan Financial. Whether later on down the line I do take the bullet and break off from them and really start fully on my own. Getting employees would be very, very scary because the majority of my clients say that employees are their biggest headache. So I don't know. I'd have to weigh up the options, but it's exciting to dream about something different in the future. It's just right now I've got my feet on the ground and I'm just doing what I'm doing.
I will say, having employees is one of, I'd say is one of the hardest things, but it's also, like the saying goes, when something is hard, it's one of the most fulfilling things as well at the same time. And you kind of do have to be a little bit ready for that step and want
Yeah.
to go into that direction. But I guess it's kind of almost the difficult feeling of when you're ready to start a family. You know when that feeling comes, and for some people they don't want it, and that's absolutely great. And some people, they just know that that's something that they want, and they're going to do it. And when you then have that, let's say, sort of family, all the sort of the same feelings come of how you want to look after them, or you want to be there for them, you want to give them the best, you want to and grow with them. With, like you said, if your future is looking into sort of different and delving into different financial services. Now, I work heavily in financial services marketing, and I know it is going through some huge changes, which is bringing its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
What are your current challenges that you're facing at the moment, and how does that make you kind of feel?
Yeah, I mean, the current challenges are there's been recent legislation in our industry called Consumer Duty, which is taking up a lot of my time. I completely understand why we're doing it, but it's basically to make it more digestible, get rid of the financial lingo when you're chatting to a client, also giving them the tools and tips to make educated decisions and explaining the different scenarios. So basically, a good way of putting it is if you went to the pub in, I don't know, if you went for a coffee and you bought a £10 coffee, or they said it's £10, then you know that you were getting ripped off, so you wouldn't buy it. It's the same analogy with the insurance world. It's, do they need all of these additional benefits just to drive up the cost? So it's really keeping us as brokers way more accountable. And yeah, I've always had the motto this last 3.5 years is, I work with the client to their budget. I'm not going to ram anything down anyone's throat just to make a sale. I've always been more about knowledge, more about making sure that they are happy with what they are investing in and purchasing in, instead of looking at those bigger pictures. So that's taken up a lot of my time, whilst that's just come into play. Other kind of areas is obviously the rising cost of living. It is difficult out there, not just in the UK, in several different countries around the world. So we are seeing a lot of people who are sitting down, having a cup of tea with a partner, and they're going through their monthly income and expenditure, and they're just, don't need that, which is completely understandable. But that's where you should get in touch with your broker, look at alternative solutions. If you are paying high premiums, which you can't afford, there are alternatives out there. So recently had a client who's now divorced, lost their job, all within the space of a 2-month period. can't pay their premiums, and we've managed to get them a free 3 month premium holiday break. Basically, it's the same with your mortgage. You can kind of do the same sort of things as well. So that's another difficult scenario at the moment that we are finding difficult.
No, but it sounds like the industry though is going in a great direction in being far more transparent, far more, yeah, rather than it being sort of this cloak and concealing and like, oh, you must trust us because we're the experts. It's no, here's the facts, here's the things. We're going to give you a solution that is very much applicable to you. I love that you use £10 coffee, by the way, because I still might buy it. But no,
Or if I was down in London, it was £10 then.
yeah, I don't know, but I'm the coffee queen, I'm afraid. So I'll be like, okay, what? The thing is, though, I'll be looking at that. I still £10. I'll be looking at that coffee, going, what's in that coffee? Are we talking like a cold brew nitro with lots of cream and sugar? And I'll be expecting a premium, and I might stretch to it. But it's the same. If I knew in the policy that I'm looking at, and I can see, well, yes, okay, it's £10. It is on the higher, the premium end of the scale. But look what I get for all of this, and it facilitates all of my needs, and I understand that. Then I have no qualms then paying it. But if, like you said, if I didn't know that and I didn't see that, then what am I actually getting? Especially
Exactly.
when insurance is something for the future of like a fail safe where it's like I don't even know if I'm never going to need this. So I really like that. Like, it's time consuming, but it sounds like it's a great direction.
Another great example is home. Like, we do a lot of mortgages, and we want to make sure if we're helping someone buy their dream home, we want to make sure that's protected with the correct home insurance. Now, home insurance, car insurance, a travel insurance are always boom. Let's go to Go Compare. Let's go to the comparison site, see what we can find for cheapest chips, which is fine. You can completely go and do that. But I had a client who said, "Look, I'm getting this from Go Compare for £19." And I said, "Yeah, please share it with me. This is the quote that I've done for their renewal." And I basically outlined the definitions of the additional benefits. So buildings, accidental damage. So basically saying if you put your foot through the ceiling and fall through, then that would be covered. If you didn't have it on, it wouldn't be covered. Same with content. So I knew they had a family. So if they pick up a toy and throw it at your TV, it would be covered with accidental damage contents. It wouldn't if you wouldn't, and so on. And went through those additional benefits, as we call them, and then give them the kind of scenarios to say, well, I don't know if my child's going to throw a toy at the TV, so I'll just remove that. I don't need it. Completely fine, because I've given them the tools to make that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you go, for example, I travel around with my bike, so I fly my bike around with me because I'm. It's a
Road bike or
road
mountain?
bike. Yeah, road
Yes.
bike, because that's my form of transport. It's far cheaper than a car. It's far more eco-friendly than a car or taxi or anything like that. But the risk that comes through it, and it has just happened to me, where the airplanes crush it. They really crush it. Now, if I was looking at an insurance, I know that is a high risk, a high probability. There's high chance that's going to happen because it's a very common thing when you fly your bike on airplanes. And so I'll be like, straight away insurance tip, and I have, by the way. It was straight on my travel insurance. The other scenarios, like I said, just that the probability of that happening are so low that if it happens, you're almost willing to just feel free to pay because the chances of it happening, like, so if they know my little kid's not going to throw a toy at the TV, and you kind of like, I'll be fine to pay that. I'm okay to pay that, So I like that there's more choice and options to almost customize it these days, and is that, I assume that's far more with brokers like yourself than necessarily like the Go Compare sort of cheapest chips take quick.
Yeah, you're not going to get that advice, or you're not going to get those scenarios. It's gonna be that financial lingo that it says there and Go Compare, and it might just go straight over your head. So that's why, even home insurance, seek advice.
I love it. So kind of one final question, because I always love to ask businesses in that pre-5-year phase, because that is the hardest. That is the hardest part of business. It's the first 5 years. What is a time where something has just absolutely failed, but actually it was the biggest blessing in disguise for you?
Wow, that's a tough one. Yeah, I'd probably say when I first got licensed to do business protection, I did get a very big lead. They were turning over £7 million a year, and I went in there with the ambitions and the excitement to go in there and really get across them and ultimately put insurance in place for them. But I was so out of my depth. It was unbelievable. Some of the questions they were firing at me, I was just like, only just been signed off, But that was just, I left it sour taste in my mouth. I was like, not the best there, Andy. But I, put my arm around myself and said, you've only been doing this a month, so give yourself a break. And then that was a blessing in disguise because I kind of just learned from that, and I will always track back to that, and I will always kind of envision what questions they're gonna ask me. I knew a little bit about the business, but I didn't go into the nitty gritties of the pre research that I should have done of what that business does, what that service provides, what pain points that sells to other people and solves with the solution, basically. So that is, been a blessing in disguise, and I haven't looked back.
Perfect. And from the sounds of it, you've been putting that learning into practice in actually almost how your operations going forward. When you meet a new lead going forward, you're asking different questions, you're researching different things, some things that you would have never done if you'd ever had that experience.
Yeah, exactly. If I never had that experience, it improved myself when I go to networking events in the local area, virtual or in person. It just improved my knowledge, improved my speaking skills. Controlling that nervous moments and just making it feel more and talk more natural. So yeah, it was really good learning curve for sure.
I love it. I know I've also been in the same situation where you come out of that meeting and you just really kick yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, why didn't I do that? And you sometimes you come out of really good meetings, you go like, yeah, I killed it, but you never reflect on those meetings. You always reflect on the ones so you just like, that was subpar. That was not great. How could I make that better in the future?
Well, I mean, you can go into those meetings, you come out and you're like, nailed that, absolutely smash it. It doesn't materialize into a new client or a sale or So then it's like, then you are scratching your head, but then you've kind of got to remember that your personality is different to them, and then you can kind of, it's not personal. It could just be the timing's not right, or they didn't understand what you were trying to pitch to them. So it's just one of them as well.
How have you been able to learn that? It's a very common trait. A very good salesman, they really don't take it personally if somebody says no to them. And I know I've noticed this theme as well in sports people, where you get exposed repeatedly to scenarios where it doesn't go your right way. It doesn't. People say no. People don't like you just because of the highly competitive environment. But from your experience, where have you found that you learned that it's okay that people don't
Yeah,
like you or say no to
don't,
you?
don't get me wrong. When I first started, I did think the negative way. I did think, why am I not just getting there? And now I've just learned over the last 3.5 years, as if they don't come on board as a new client, it's just you kind of move on and learn from it. And I think that's kind of why our firm's been created with the ex or current professional athletes, because we've got that mentality we have been knocked down, relentlessly our whole sporting lives. So it can just transition into a sales focused role. So that's kind of you kind of just got to take it on the chin. But I was terrible when I first started. You know, sleepless nights and getting myself in such a muddle. And thinking what, why, what, and just dwelling on things. And that's one advice if people going out into business is don't dwell, just learn and move on and focus on the next one.
Well, on that brilliant piece of advice, because I wholeheartedly concur, it is learned. You do have to experience, and you have to go onto that journey to really fully appreciate that recommendation. So, finally, what is something that is £100 that somebody could buy from you today that would give them a ton of value?
Yeah, so I'd always go for full income protection, which full income protection, it depends on the person. So full income protection for everyone, because why? Because we are the biggest money maker in our life. So if you sat down and worked it out how much you were going to make up until your retirement age, it could be close to £1 million. So just picture it as that way. So you want to protect your income all the way up until you retire. And people ask me, why do I need that much cover? Because the average claim on an income protection plan is currently 9 years. So why wouldn't you want that cover? Why wouldn't you want to, like I said before in that scenario, if you can't go back to your main occupation, is you can, be signed off work by a doctor and focus on your health, and then make a return to work if you want to, or under doctor's advice. So that would be my kind of my main product that I would suggest to people. And then, but I also know it's circumstantial, and if people have got kids, you want to make sure you've got life cover in place. So yeah, that would be those main ones for me.
Awesome. On that note, well, thank you so much, Andy. It's been a pleasure to have you on and just make business owners more aware of the less glamorous things about business. But we unfortunately have to do the boring admin, because it's the boring admin that can be the most life changing, positively and negatively. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Andy, for your time. You've been awesome.
no worries. Advice to directors out there is just get a PA and just ask her to do it for you, and then take the stress.
Even better.
Yeah, take that stress
Amazing.
away.
Amazing. Have a great rest of the day.
All right, awesome. Speak to you soon.